Okay. Sorry, there's someone next door doing some building work, I think, so that'll be why the banging's there. So I wanted to talk about the reactions of the ego and the triggering of these reactions through perceived happenings in life, and using presence and self-inquiry to deal with them or move through them. So I wanted to talk about the difference of the mind, the story of the mind, and how the mind perpetuates the physical or visceral reaction that occurs in the body and the emotional body in response to, let's say, stimulus from the environment. So an example I used in an early video was shortly after the shift in perception. I noticed that, so I was walking down the street, I was walking across the road and a car came up really fast and then slowed down like rapidly, coming towards me. So usually that would have triggered a defensive anger reaction, and I observed that the feeling in the body was there. So the reaction, the fear reaction of the body, the kind of primal danger response was felt immediately in the body. That kind of stimulation was there. But I wasn't affected by the narrative, although the narrative still came up to be taken, came up to be picked up. It was like an offer was there, an offering of, do you want to link this emotional response with the mental narrative? And then you can see that by picking up that mental narrative, you're taking this emotion, or it's not even emotion, like a visceral, physical, animalistic reaction to that experience, and you're perpetuating that, so you're drawing that out even more. And what I'll notice is that the mind will bring up previous events to strengthen that feeling, to continue and to attach a narrative to that feeling. Like the feeling wants to be perpetuated, like that visceral experience wants to continue and to be lived and felt. And prolonged to stay alive. So it's like this pain identity that's been strengthened by all these visceral reactions, anchors itself onto the thoughts. The feeling anchors itself onto, and they're interdependent. It seems to be there's a connection there that can be severed through paying attention. And the narrative will seem real, and it becomes real as in it changes your physiology. Say if you're to have a series of neurotic thoughts or worrying thoughts, but say I have that, but I'm just sitting here, that'll come up through the body. The mind will bring it on, the mind will create this feeling. It seems in the narrative. So for example, if when I stepped out, when I was walking out on the road and the car came, usually, and I know this because that's how I used to operate, usually that defence would turn into an attack. It would turn into an anger response where whoever was driving that car would be perceived as a threat, and then I would begin to go into a kind of conflict mode where I'd become angry at the person driving. And that would be triggered by this emotional response that's kind of there anyway. It's the body trying to protect itself, but then that turns into a narrative. And then you notice as well is that when you're operating from that, you're just attracted to people who are the same, who are operating. It's like this magnetic, because the same things kind of pull, same energies kind of pull together, and you see that the person that you're in the conflict with and you are joining forces to share this experience of this pain body that's manifesting. So it's like a team effort. Same with everything else. Same with all the other different flavours of narrative experiences as well. And through self-inquiry, awareness and presence and insight, you can become aware of all that. Initially it begins by retrospect, so you look back. Once you come out of that, once you snap out of it, you look back and you think, okay, I know what's going on here, I can see it. But when you're in it, you're lost. There comes a point where in, say, real time, you can see what's going on, see the self, see the person operating, and then that's when you can kind of effortlessly start to change things. Before, you would have to apply tactics, tricks and techniques to put in place for when this came up, because there's a gap there, there's a gap of unconsciousness there, but after the shift you can deal with it in real time, and it just kind of unfolds itself, the behaviour changes, and it's easier. Yeah, so just being aware, and then when you feel that emotion, an example, say you're sitting, you have like anxiety or worrying thoughts or angry thoughts, and you start to become aware, you feel it in the body, rather than having a method of avoidance or any sort of reactive coping mechanism, or rather than trying to fix it through thought and through narrative, which is where the problem probably came from in the first place. Just going right into that sensation, going into the body immediately in this present moment and seeing what's there, trying to feel it as much as possible, trying to experience what is this feeling, questioning that, and until that kind of questioning and awareness happens, it's running automatically and you're in it, you're being driven by this narrative, you're being possessed by this thought form that clearly has a physiological effect on the body. So you realise when you achieve, let's say, some form of perspective in real time, you realise that yes, it happens automatically. The person isn't there making these decisions and living this story. It's the opposite way almost. The story is like a possession. It's like you're being possessed by these thought forms and these narratives, and you can see that when you're in it, you don't have there's no control, and that need to try and figure things out with the mind, try and fix things by running through these narratives, it is ineffective, completely ineffective. In fact, it's the opposite, it kind of makes things worse. So Yeah, so no, so the good thing to do is when you do feel this visceral reaction, this physical reaction, be aware of the thoughts that surround that. Go into it, go into the body, where is it, and feel it, and try and investigate what is this, where is it, and not so much why, just go into it and experience it, let it pass through, and you'll notice that the energy is kind of released, or at least converted into something else, converted into nothing. And then you start to, by doing this, notice the patterns that come up, notice the patterns, and it's not like you're investigating this from a psychological standpoint, where an analytical standpoint, where you're noticing these things and then you're investing a mind effort into implying some sort of strategy to fix it. It's just kind of letting go. I'm sure there definitely is use in that kind of approach, 100%. But what I'm talking about is a little bit less prescriptive, less analytical, more about just knowing yourself, knowing the self, understanding what the patterns are, and understanding the thought narrative that surrounds them. You see, for example, as well, sometimes you'll be in a mood or have this kind of undertone of some sort of emotion, maybe probably an unpleasant one, because these are the ones we tend to focus on dealing with. Where was I going with this? Yeah, and then there's the question, why am I feeling like this? There's no definitive reason. There's no definitive reason, and you're trying to figure out, and then maybe that begins to come in and control your behaviour for you. You're acting different, you're doing things to try and make yourself feel better. There's not an obvious thought form surrounding this underlying emotion, but again, like I said, zooming out, bringing things into a perspective, expanding, and then these patterns start to become apparent because you're not in them kind of longer, the kind of macro patterns rather than the micro patterns. So again, you're bringing your awareness out to encompass more and more, and you become aware of just what these patterns are, but also that these patterns aren't you. Like I said before, they're almost just programs. They're the things that run themselves, and they're there. They've been constructed as a response to whatever's going on in life and how it's being dealt with. Reaction. Hiding under the disguise of, I've chosen to do this, I'm doing this free will, this is me, this is my doing, because that gives a sense of control that ultimately isn't really there. Another thing that can happen as well is when we start going into these sensations, we realise that at least me, I realise that they're correlated with physical symptoms of aches and pains and body issues and stuff like that, energy, sleep, breathing, heart, rhythm, all these kind of things, and you can see that a lot of the little ailments that we deal with from time to time seem to be manifestations of these powerful emotional thought forms manifesting themselves into various kind of health ailments in the body as well. Anyway, that's 50 minutes, so that'll do for now.